first time ever, the Chicago Cubs play Kansas City. In particular, they play Kauffman Stadium on a warm, sultry night in the Midwest. Hi, everybody. I'm Wayne Larrabee along with Steve Stone. Great to have you with us for Cubs baseball. Well, an injury to Brant Brown suffered last night in Detroit has opened the door, and the Cubs have brought up Kevin Orie. So some changes in the lineup here tonight in Game 1 of this 3-game series.
Kevin Orie was hitting very well at AAA, as you can see. 24 RBIs in 24 games, a .370 batting average. And unfortunately, Brant Brown was playing well. He's on the disabled list for at least 15 days. And you're right, Jeff Blauser leading off tonight.
Yeah, they've shaken things up in the Cubs lineup. Now, Kansas City is an interesting ball club from the standpoint they're one of the best road teams in baseball. They're absolutely the worst home team in the game.
They're 12-27 here at home, and if you look at that graphic, you can tell that they just don't pitch very well here. Also, another factor, Henry Rodriguez and Sammy Sosa have 59 home runs combined. The Royals have 66. They don't have a lot of power.
Not a lot of power at all. Tony Muser, the former Cubs hitting coach, is now the manager here in Kansas City. They expect to sell out crowds throughout the weekend here. Should be a good weekend and the start of a 3-game set between these two teams. Stay tuned. The lineups and the first pitch coming up next.
Chicago Cubs baseball on WGN.
Wayne Larrabee with Steve Stone back at Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City. It is a sunshiny evening and the wind is blowing out to left field from right to left. And let's take a look at the Pepsi Cubs lineup for manager Jim Riggleman. Yes, they've shaken things up. Blauser moves to the top of the order. Morandini, Sosa, Grace, Rodriguez will DH. Houston, Orie, Valdez, and Hernandez. Of the last 4 games, Rodriguez 4 home runs.
And the defense for Tony Muser and the Kansas City Royals. Conine, Damon, and Sutton left to right in the infield. Palmer, Lopez, Offerman, and King, and a battery of Sal Fasano and Hipolito Pichardo, a right-hander with a pretty good arm. He's a sinker-slider pitcher, as you can tell. He's had some problems this year with an ERA knocking at the door of 6. He does have some big problems early in the ball game, so you can get to him in the first inning or two. It should be interesting to see if the Cubs can take advantage of him early.
There you get a look at it. I'll tell you something, Cub fans, you don't see this stadium very often, but it is one of the prettiest ballparks in all of Major League Baseball. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but the Royals ownership situation is in a state of flux at the moment, and Cub fans are going to help support this ball club here this weekend. There's no doubt about that. There's a familiar face wearing number 40. Tony Muser, who was the hitting instructor for the Cubs for the better part. He was on the coaching staff for the better part of 5 seasons. Jeff Blauser leads it off for the Cubs, hitless in his last 2 games. Hipolito Pichardo's first pitch is inside for ball 1.
Pichardo has to keep the ball down to be effective. When he misses with that slider up, he has problems. And the first pitch being up doesn't help him very much.
And there's a strike to even the count at 1-1. Pichardo last year, Steve, started in the bullpen when Jeff Montgomery, the closer, was out with an injury. Pitched pretty well at times in that role, but would rather start. That's where his heart's at, according to Tony Muser.
Well, what he does have is good movement on his fastball. It usually moves into the right-hand hitters. And I think the visibility early should be difficult because the lights haven't had a chance to take over yet.
Here's the 1-2 pitch. That's a little bit low. It's 2 balls and 2 strikes. Kevin Orie is back from Iowa, where Steve, he really tore the cover off the ball down there, and hopefully he has his confidence back and his stroke back in order. 2-2 pitch is chopped off the plate, foul.
Well, nobody is happier to be back than Kevin Orie. However, Brant Brown going on the disabled list certainly is a blow to the Cubs. He was playing so very well, but Kevin Orie went down, didn't hang his head. He hit the ball exceptionally well. He hit .370. Hit 9 home runs, drove in 24 in 24 games, and hopefully he has straightened out that stroke.
2-2 pitch again, and Blauser hanging tough. Temperature of 90 degrees and humidity here in Kansas City. From about June through September, it is hot and humid here.
They've had some defensive problems at third and at second.
This is the first visit, as I said, of the Cubs to Kansas City. And they had been here before.
1886.
1886. Under a different name, right?
Yes, indeed. And Jim Riggleman looking out, swept Kansas City in Chicago last year.
2-2 pitch. Oh, just missed outside. 3 balls and 2 strikes. While Blauser has struggled at the plate, as .238 would attest, his on-base percentage is .350, and he has drawn 38 walks. That's inside ball 4, and Blauser's aboard.
Well, Tony Muser said that he didn't feel that the umpiring was all that great last night, and they've held over these umpires, and I think he's probably jawing at Gary Cederstrom from the dugout. He wanted that slider on the 2-2 pitch, didn't get it. And for the Cubs, it sets up a pretty good hit and run situation. Now Palmer has made 19 errors at third, Offerman 10 at second base.
Picking the ball has been a problem here in Kansas City this season. First pitch to Morandini is in there for strike 1 to the outside corner.
A lot of people here think that Dean Palmer is having some shoulder problems, although he's a pretty tough guy, does not want to come out of the lineup, but he has made some errant throws this year.
Runner aboard, nobody out, and the 0-1 pitch hit in the air, center field. Damon backing up, makes the turn near the warning track, puts it away. Blauser back to first, 1 man down. And here's the man they were lining up at 5 o'clock this afternoon here at Kauffman Stadium to get in early to make sure they would see Sammy Sosa take batting practice. And unlike Mark McGwire, nary a complaint from Slammin' Sammy.
Well, Sammy loves the fans love him. You can see 19 in June. And Wayne, if you look all the way out in the left field, up by the flags up there, Sammy Sosa hit a couple of balls there in batting practice. It was over the grassy knoll, if you will. And Sammy made some fans out there very happy, but that is a blast.
Not the grassy knoll, but a grassy knoll.
Right.
Let's make sure we have that straight. First pitch to Sosa in there for strike 1 called.
It's a little easier to hit home runs here these days. The fence is a little closer in the gaps. Used to be 385. Now it's 375. It used to be 410 to straightaway center. It's now 400. So they're trying to make it more hitter friendly.
The 0-1 pitch to Sosa. 1 ball, 1 strike. Let's see who's cleaning up in baseball. Brought to you by Hoover.
RBIs in the month of June. Sammy at the top, as you would expect. Karros, Bagwell, Everett, and Scott Rowland. But this month has belonged to the man you're looking at, Sammy Sosa.
1-1 pitch outside, and it's 2 balls and 1 strike. No one in baseball history has ever hit more home runs in a single calendar month than Sammy Sosa. Last season against the Royals, not bad. 6 for 12 to get to that 500 level. 2-1 delivery is lined up the middle. That's a base hit to center field. Blauser turning second, heading to third. Damon in center field, a very weak arm. And the Cubs have runners at the corners and just 1 out.
Well, we told you Pichardo has problems early. And a sinker baller who gets the ball up is going to have problems. Sammy goes right back through the middle. This is a waist-high fastball, and every chance the Cubs get, they're going to run on Johnny Damon.
So the runners at the corners, and Mark Grace the hitter. Grace at .339 with the 7 homers, all of which came in the month of May. 43 runs batted in.
Sal Fasano, a great receiver of the ball, but he's had some shoulder problems.
Grace looks at ball 1 outside.
So Fasano, who's had problems hitting, can block anything down. Richie Dower, one of the coaches, said that you just can't throw the ball by him.
Richie Dower, former teammate of yours in Baltimore.
Second baseman of the Orioles.
The 1-0 delivery lined into right field, a base hit. The Cubs have the lead. Blauser comes across to score. Sosa on his way to third. The throw into Dean Palmer not in time, and the Cubs still have runners at the corners and 1 out and a 1-0 lead.
RBI number 44 for Mark Grace. And the Cubs do indeed jump on Pichardo early. And as has happened so many times in this ballpark to the Royals, they fall behind. Mark Grace gets one out over the plate, drives it into right field, and Sammy Sosa running on Larry Sutton. If Mark Grace had read the trajectory of this throw, he'd have taken off and gone into second base, because You can see by that throw that there's no way that it could be cut off. But Mark, not wanting to gamble, get taken out of the inning with red hot Henry Rodriguez coming up.
4-game hitting streak, 7 for 13 for Henry. Homers in each of his last 4 games, and he looks at strike one call. So Henry's starting to get back on track a little bit at the plate offensively. There is Sammy Sosa at third and Mark Grace at first. Hipolito Pichardo with the pitch on the ground to the second baseman. Offerman goes to short for one, on to first for the double play, and the inning is over. 4-6-3, but the Cubs get a run, a couple of hits, they leave a man. End of a half inning. Cubs lead 1-0. Well, let's take a look at the Cubs defense, brought to you by Pepsi. Oh, first off, let's take a look at the Kansas City offense. And for Tony Muser, Damon at center field, pretty good speed. Offerman at second, then Morris, King, Palmer, Sutton, Conine, Lopez, and Fasano. And Jeff Conine against Trachsel is a pretty darn good hitter. Now for that Pepsi defense, Mr. Stone.
And the Pepsi defense for Jim Riggleman and the Cubs. Valdez, Hernandez, and Sosa left to right. In the infield, good to see Kevin Ory back, along with Blauser, Morandini, and Grace, and a battery of Tyler Houston and Steve Trachsel. Trachsel looking for his 7th win of the year, and this is his 16th start. And it starts right at the top with Kansas City, and that's Johnny Damon, who's having quite a year. And that man saw Ernie's 512. Is that Ernie Harris or Ernie Banks?
Oh, man, he might have seen Arnie Harris's 512th telecast. I don't know. Johnny Damon at 285 with 8 homers, 24 runs batted in. Damon was 1 for 9 in the Pittsburgh series. He had 2 home runs in a game at Cincinnati on Tuesday. He looks at strike one call to the outside corner.
As you can see, Johnny Damon having a much better year than a lot of people expected. He doesn't have a whole lot of power, but he's pumping it up somewhat.
The 0-1 delivery is inside, and it's 1-1. Steve, the Royals went 7-2 on a recently completed road trip. Came back feeling a lot of momentum, then dropped the opener of a 2-game set to Pittsburgh, and the air went right out of the balloon, according to Tony Muser. And they were able to put together a win last night to split that series. Damon down to the count, 1 ball and 2 strikes.
Against left-handers, Damon has struggled, but as you would expect against right-handers, most of his power and most of his average. But he was mystified by that fork ball from Steve Trachsel.
Trachsel missing inside of the fastball, and it's 2 balls and 2 strikes. Damon has done a good job in the last 36 games. 7 doubles, couple of triples, 6 homers, and 26 runs scored. And this one pulled down the right field line, and it is foul.
Not foul by much, says Joe Brinkman, as he's right on that line.
Well, I'll tell you what, the wind blowing strong from right to left field almost blew that one back into play. Or into home run territory, I should say. 2 balls and 2 strikes. And Damon stays alive.
What wind there is blowing across from right to left. So it's going to take the ball out in left and left center. If you take it right down the line, it's not difficult to hit a home run because it's only 330 here in Kansas City, but you do have to pull it right down the line. And there's a lot of room to roam in center field, as Jose Hernandez, who will be forced now to start in center field till Brent Brown gets back, is going to find out.
And for those of you who joined us late, Brant placed on the 15-day DL. Shoulder injury. Popped up by Damon. Tyler Houston tracking it down in front of the plate. Makes the catch. So 1 away, and it brings up the former Dodger, Jose Offerman. Offerman at 283, 3 homers and 32 runs batted in to face Steve Trachsel.
Offerman does not have a lot of power, but the last couple of years were good offensive seasons for him. They got him from the Dodgers. The Dodgers kind of get a little disappointed with his glove at shortstop. He's now taken over at second base, and he's hit close to 300 as a Royal. And the first pitch from Steve Trachsel sails a bit high and outside for ball 1.
Offerman leads the majors with 9 triples. He had a triple last night in the ball game against Pittsburgh. It's a fly ball into center field. Hernandez coming on and makes the catch. 2 men down.
Batting third,
Interleague play continuing. This series here in Kansas City, much anticipated by the locals here, but in New York, the big series is the Mets and Yankees at Shea.
And here's a man that Cub fans will remember from his days with the Cincinnati Reds. Hal Morris still stands well off the plate, and he's still a fine hitter.
And he still likes to move up as the pitcher makes his delivery to the plate. As you'll see in a few moments, Arnie Harris will get a good shot of it for us.
Kind of amazing, isn't it, Wayne, that a guy can have both of his feet moving as he approaches the pitch?
Watch this. Here comes the pitch. Now watch the movement. There it is.
He just walks right up at it as if to get a better look.
Now, if you were pitching to Hal Morris, Steve, would you bust him inside of the fastball as he moves up on the plate like that, or what would your approach be?
Well, normally Morris doesn't have a lot of power and loves to spray the ball to left and left center field.
Here's the 2-0 delivery, and he sprays one to left field. Henry make that Pedro Valdez backing up on it. He makes the catch. Valdez starting in left field. Henry Rodriguez is the DH tonight for the Cubs. 1, 2, 3 go the Royals in the first. At the end of 1, the Cubs have a 1-0 lead. Discover card payback playback on May 9th. Kevin Ory's second inning homer against Sean Estes at Wrigley Field propelled the Cubs to a 6-0 win over the San Francisco Giants. Wayne Larrivee, Steve Stone at beautiful Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City. Top of the second inning for the Cubs. Houston, Ory, and Valdez to face Hipolito, Pichardo.
Tyler Houston has been awfully good since coming off the disabled list. His first ball game against the Tigers, he went 3 for 3 before being lifted. Let's hope for more of the same tonight.
Houston chops it foul on the first base side. Dan Radisson, the Cubs first base coach, does the wise thing and let that one go by rather than barehanded.
There is a big crowd here tonight, and they're not used to too many big crowds here at Kauffman Stadium. The Royals have not been drawing very well.
Here's the 0-1 pitch, and that misses low and away. You're right, Steve. In the last 5 or 6 years, this has always been kind of a one-horse town. When the Royals were up in the middle 70s through the 80s, the Chiefs were down. Now the Chiefs are up and the Royals are down. Right back to the box. Pichardo, no problem to Jeff King, 1 away. But it should be pointed out that Kansas City, when they've had decent ball clubs, between 1975 and 1988, they drew over 2 million people, 11 years.
Pretty good hands on the part of Pichardo as he stops this one from going back through the middle. Well, Wayne, when I played here, it was an artificial surface, and it was a whole lot faster in that infield than it is now. They had some very good teams here. And I look at third base, and I remember that's where George Brett used to roam. And what a player he was.
Kevin Ory, speaking of third baseman, stands in for the Cubs. Ory, as I mentioned, called up from Iowa, batted .370 with the 27 runs, 8 doubles, 9 homers, 24 runs batted in 24 games. The number 5 you saw a moment ago, and there it is. That's the number retired here in Kansas City of George Brett.
He's still a vice president of baseball operations here.
Or as he was quoted as saying, vice president of deferred salary. He has not been happy with his role here in the organization. Count of 2 balls and 1 strike on Kevin Ory. He and his brother Bobby are one of the groups involved with trying to buy the Kansas City Ball Club here. 3 balls and 1 strike. Lamar Hunt heading up another group, also involved in the bidding process. Astros lead the innings 2-1 in the 4th.
Bartolo Colon is awfully tough. He has 4 strikeouts already. Look for the Indians to come back in that one.
Ory checks his swing, takes it inside for ball 4. Second walk issued by Pichardo. Well, Colon, just to amplify what you're saying about him, he shut out the Yankees on 6 hits the other day in Cleveland. Not easy to do. Pedro Valdez, the left fielder for the Cubs tonight, steps to the plate.
Cubs would like to get Pedro untracked. He hasn't had much luck since coming up. And you got to make Pichardo get the ball up. When he gets it down, he hit far too many ground balls, and you're likely to hit into double plays.
It's ball 1 to Valdez. Valdez hit well down at Iowa to earn an opportunity here with the big club. 328, 15 homers, 35 runs batted in. He's done about all he can on the minor league level. He really needs an opportunity and has to make good on an opportunity on the pro level, on the major league level. There's an opportunity down the left field line. Extra bases into the corner. Conine tracks it down. They're going to wave around Ori. He scores easily. Pedro Valdez on with a run-scoring double. And the Cub fans here in Kansas City love it.
First RBI of the year for Pedro Valdez, and now Bruce Keeson is going to come out to meet with Pichardo. He gets this one out away from Valdez. He goes right with it, slices it into the corner when Conine has some problems with it. Yamanori scores. So the walk comes back to haunt him, and the Cubs go on top 2-0.
So the meeting continues on the mound. Cubs lead this ball game now 2-0. It has been a struggle recently for the Cubs. They have lost 4 in a row. Trying to turn things around.
No better team to come out of it against than the Kansas City Royals in Kansas City. When you're 12-27 in your home ballpark, you get the feeling that things are just not going to go very well for you, and that's what's happened to the Royals this year. They get down early, and they have close to a 6-point ERA here in Kansas City.
I should mention the Cubs have lost 5 in a row coming into tonight's game. The hitter Jose Hernandez, over his last 21 games, he's been a .346 hitter. Looks at a breaking pitch outside.
I think it's real hard for Pichardo to be a starting pitcher. Wayne, you said he prefers that, but he's a one-speed pitcher. He throws a hard slider and a hard sinker, and eventually, as you can see, his early inning difficulties, eventually they get to him, and late in the game they just kill him.
2 balls, no strikes. And Steve, the point that was made to me by Tony Muser is that if he doesn't have command of that slider, he really struggles then. And that's the key pitch for him. Three balls, no strikes on Hernandez.
He's already walked 2. Both of them scored. And he's on the verge of walking yet another. And Tony Muser said, look, I know how to pitch all the guys on the other side of the field. I just don't know if my pitcher can execute.
3-0 delivery, and that's ball 4. Walked him on 4 pitches after a visit from pitching coach Bruce Keeson. So already, as we mentioned, 3rd walk issued by Pichardo. And it brings up the top of the order Jeff Blauser. He walked and scored in the 1st. So far, 2 of the 3 walks have come home to score for the Cubs. Blauser hitless in his last 2 games following a 7-game hitting streak, during which he went 8 for 21 to the plate. Wave and a miss. The fastball down in the zone.
Jeff is nursing a leg problem, so if he does hit the ball on the ground, Jose Hernandez is going to have to go hard into second base and try to break up 2. Lopez with very good hands, a slick fielding shortstop. Offerman has had his problems.
There's a strike. The Mets lead the Yankees 1-0. That ball game in the 3rd. Toronto over Atlanta 2-0 in the 4th. Cubs runners at 2nd and 1st. Hernandez at 1st. Valdez at 2nd. The 2-strike pitch just missed a little bit outside.
I don't think Gary Cederstrom is going to call the low pitch tonight.
Doesn't appear like he's going to.
And that does not help a sinker baller very much.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Fouled off by Blauser. There's a lot of talk again that this is a big crowd here in Kansas City, and it really is. But they used to do this every weekend when, as we mentioned, George Brett and company were at their peak here in the late 70s, early 80s.
Kerry Wood was looking for another win, got a no decision last night, and threw the ball okay. He walked a few too many guys, but if you consider that Brant Brown did lose that one in the lights on the play where he was hurt, he got to the ball. If he caught it, Gary would have been up 3-1 and probably would have won that ball game.
1 out, 2 on for the Cubs. Blauser hanging in at 1-2 against Pichardo. Lined at the shortstop Lopez, and he did not get the tag on Valdez in time. So Valdez able to get back to second base. That was a heads-up play by Valdez. That was tailor-made for 2 right there, the way the ball was hit.
Mendy Lopez thought he had Valdez at second base. He dives, Pedro dives, and it looked to me like there's no way Darrell Cousins could have seen the tag because he was in front of the play. So if the tag was made, he wasn't going to be able to see it anyway, and the Cubs do have another swing, and it could cost the Royals because Morandini hit a couple of home runs in Detroit and crushed the ball the first time up, so he's been hot.
Fly deep to center field in the first inning. Looks at a fastball away. 1 ball, no strikes.
This is where Sosa hitting behind you has to help. You've got to believe that Pichardo, looking over in the on-deck circle, does not want to walk Mickey Morandini. He's got to throw him something good to hit.
The 1-0 delivery. That's down low. Oh, make it a strike. Late delayed call by the home plate umpire, Cedarstrom. Sal Fasano bluffing his throw over to second base. So count at 1-1 on Morandini. Morandini 4 for 8 on the road trip. And it's fouled off. 1-2. Cubs family would like to offer condolences to the family of Newell Bliss, who passed away yesterday in Arizona after a long illness. Newell was a longtime member of the Ho-Ho-Cam organization in Mesa and friend of many associated with the ball club.
And we echo those sentiments. He was a wonderful man.
1-2 delivery, line towards center field. Damon had him played perfectly, and he makes the catch. The inning is over. Cubs pick up a run on a base hit. They leave 2 in the middle of the second. It's now 2-0 Cubs. Center field. A look into Kauffman Stadium. And hey, Cub fans, time to sport your best polyester. The Cubs and Southwest Airlines bring you the disco decade of the 70s to Wrigley Field once again on Tuesday, June 30th. Arrive by 6 and groove to the live tunes of Sister Sledge. The best dressed fans can win 2 round-trip airline tickets from Southwest Airlines. Don't forget, for tickets, stop by the Wrigley box office or call 312-831-CUBS. Jeff King, the hitter, to lead things off for the Royals. King, Palmer, and Sutton in the bottom of the second against Trachsel, and it's 1 ball, 1 strike.
Well, you invite Jeff King to lay down a bunt if he wants to do that. Kevin Ory back at third. This is a man who hit 28 home runs, drove in 112 last year for Kansas City. And this year the batting average up somewhat. The power number is still pretty good.
King struggled through the month of May, but has had a very good June. And Steve, like a lot of hitters, he is very streaky, and when he gets hot, he's hard to get out.
King and Palmer are the 2 real power threats in this lineup. And the Cubs remember Jeff King from his days with the Pirates, where he did some damage against them.
1 ball, 2 strikes. 2-2 the count. Take a look at this.
It seemed like all those 11 home runs were game winners. The average was down, but he had some big home runs against them.
You're right. Every time you looked up, he seemed to be killing the Cubs. Checked his swing, and Trachsel misses a little bit low. Trachsel wanted an appeal. Didn't get it.
Well, the pitcher can point all he wants, but it has to be the catcher or the manager that asks for the appeal. The umpire will never react to a pitcher asking for an appeal.
Here's the payoff. Called strike 3. King backing out of the way, and that pitch caught the inside corner of the plate. First strikeout of the game for Trachsel.
Gary Cedarstrom said this was good enough. Trachsel paints the corner on the inside corner, and it is strikeout number 1 for Steve Trachsel.
1 out, nobody on for Dean Palmer, the third baseman, a former Texas Ranger. Fly ball down the right field line, and it is off the wall. Gets by Sosa. Palmer around second. He's heading to third. Here comes the throw into Ori, and it's not in time. A sliding triple for Dean Palmer.
That one almost went out of the ballpark, and Sammy Sosa, not used to the caroms in this park, was kind of confused with that. And if you don't know a ballpark, then you don't know which way the ball is going to kick. So it just misses going out, then gets away from Sammy, and still he made it very close. It looked for an instant like Palmer was going to be content with a double, but he makes it all the way to third. A good throw by Sammy, just a little late on the tag, and Palmer, who put a charge into that one, winds up at third.
So the first hit of the ball game for the Royals here in the bottom of the second inning, and Larry Sutton, the right fielder, steps to the plate. Sutton is a product of the University of Illinois baseball program, and he has kind of taken over of late in right field, at least against right-handed pitching, because Jermaine Dye, acquisition from Atlanta over a year ago, has not panned out for the Royals as of yet. Gave up what, Michael Tucker, I believe, on that Jermaine Dye deal.
Michael Tucker and Keith Lockhart. That was a tremendous deal, but not for the Royals.
The 0-1 delivery, that's inside. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Sutton signed by a friend of mine, former scout, probably a current scout, Tony Lovato. Was in the 21st round of the June 1992 free agent draft, where he was selected.
Dean Palmer at third, 1 out. Cubs are leading 2-0, bottom of the second. Sutton back over the middle, and that's a base hit. Trachsel almost got a glove on it, but Sutton gets an RBI single, and it's a 2-1 ball game.
RBI number 27 for Larry Sutton. And so the first triple since 1996 for Dean Palmer pays dividends, as Trachsel got a piece of leather on it. That's all he could do. And the Royals are on the board. The problem has not been all that offensive for the Royals, because they're okay in that department, but pitching at home has been the problem.
Well, here's Jeff Conine, the former Florida Marlin. He homered last night against Pittsburgh. Still only 1 out. Larry Sutton on at first, and the pitch grazes the outside corner of the plate for strike 1 call.
See that batting average well down. For a couple of years with the Marlins, Jeff Conine hit in the high 290s and the low 300s. Then he had some eye problems. They didn't know if it was an allergy or exactly what was going wrong with him. His eyes just seemed to get very dry, and he had some vision problems, and he really hasn't been the same since. But he was a good player for the Marlins, and he's always been a good hitter against Steve Trachsel.
No balls, 2 strikes.
Jeff Conine can't believe it, and quite frankly, I think that one about 3-4 inches outside, and Steve Trachsel very happy to have that kind of corner.
So Conine shakes his head a bit. He's a world-class racquetball player. He and his wife Cindy, matter of fact, Cindy is a 2-time national doubles champion and won the silver medal in the women's doubles at the '93 U.S. Olympic Festival in San Antonio. The 0-2 delivery, and he jammed him, popped it up into shallow center field. Morandini gives chase and makes the catch, and they're 2 men down, so that's a big out there. 2 out with Sutton still at first, and Mendy Lopez, the shortstop, comes to the plate. Lopez recalled from Omaha AAA on Monday. This is his second stint in the big leagues. And Steve, they've had problems at shortstop. They haven't gotten any kind of consistent play either in the field or at the plate from the shortstop, and they're just trying to get somebody out there like Mendy Lopez. You mentioned he has good hands, and that's what they're hoping he can do, is just pick it a little bit for him.
Well, it's been a revolving door, and they might be entertaining the idea of bringing back Freddie Patek.
Or how about UL Washington?
Or UL Washington.
He used to play the game with a toothpick in his mouth. I'll tell you. Cookie Rojas, another middle infielder. He played second when he was here, however. Patek played short. George Brett was at third, and big John Mayberry was at first base. Remember that lineup?
I certainly do. I faced it. And one guy I could not get out, of course a lot of people had trouble with him, was George Brett.
Sutton aboard at first. Here's the pitch to the plate. That's inside.
Jose Offerman will run. Johnny Damon on occasion will run. Other than that, they don't have a lot of runners on this team.
And Steve, in that regard, it becomes a little more difficult to manufacture runs. And yet they don't have the consistent power guys either for the most part, although Dean Palmer is certainly capable.
Well, if I'm Steve Trachsel, I don't worry that much about Sutton at first base. Here's a man with only one stolen base. You almost invite him to go. Just concentrate on Lopez. And although the batting average is a lofty 500, it's a random sampling of 6 at-bats. So Steve's still very concerned with Mr. Sutton at first base. And meanwhile, he's gone 2-0 on the fairly weak hitter. And that makes weak hitters a lot stronger.
Grace holds on the runner at first, and the pitch to the plate. Just foul past the third base bag.
Well, that would have been a run, and that's what I mean. When you go 2-0 and you have to throw a fastball, that one missed by a foot of tying the ball game. Concentrate on the runners when you know they're on, and the guys you know don't run very much. Concentrate on the hitter.
And again, Steve, when you don't have great speed throughout your lineup, or even at the top of the lineup for the most part, you're in a situation where you might start a runner early on occasion, that type of thing. Try to stay out of the double play, or maybe get an extra base if you get a base hit out there.
I would think they would do it, but not with Sutton, not with 2 outs.
Yeah.
Tony Muser would love to be aggressive because, quite obviously, he is a student of the National League type of play. He just doesn't have the kind of team to do that on a consistent basis.
2 balls, 1 strike. Tyler Houston behind the plate for the Cubs tonight. Trachsel another toss over to first. How much is called from the dugout in terms of throwing to first base in a situation like, for example, like this? They're not calling for him to throw to first base, are they?
Well, there is no way that Jim Riggleman could have looked at the career steals of Larry Sutton and called 3 straight throws to first base.
2-1 delivery. Misses down low, and Trachsel's fallen behind. 3 balls and 1 strike.
Jim Riggleman not very happy that Steve Trachsel has fallen behind 3-1. He's had to make 2 tough pitches, a 2-0 pitch and now a 3-1 pitch. And they don't play Lopez to pull, so you don't want him getting anything inside.
The 3-1 delivery. In the air to center field and deep. Hernandez on his horse, and this one is off the wall. Sutton will score. The ball gets away from Jose Hernandez. Heading into third base, Mendy Lopez. Here's the play, and it's not in time. Run-scoring triple by Mendy Lopez. Second triple of the inning, and the Royals have caught the Cubs at 2 apiece.
Steve Trachsel very concerned with a man who couldn't run. Consequently, he made a 2-0 and then a 3-1 pitch to a guy that's not all that good a hitter, and Lopez puts a charge into a 3-1 fastball and misses by an eyelash of taking the ball out of the ballpark. So just like that, the 2-0 lead is by the board. Sutton scores. Lopez drives in his first run of the year, and the Cubs have given back that early lead.
And it brings up the catcher, Sal Fasano. Fasano, a 5-game hitting streak. Matter of fact, he's hit safely in 8 of his last 10, batting .303 over the course of those 10 games. Breaking ball, hit on the ground to Ori. This should be the inning, and it is. But the Royals, 2 runs on 3 hits. They leave a man. At the end of 2, it's a brand new ball game. Along with Steve Stone, pinch hitting for Chip Caray, this is Wayne Larrabee from Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City. Well, fountains abound beyond the outfield wall here in this beautiful ballpark. This is the first time Arnie Harris has had an opportunity to shoot this stadium.
Well, you would never know that this park is right around 30 years old. You look around, it is absolutely beautiful. It's clean. Great sight lines in it. There's not a pole to obstruct your vision. It was really a well thought out, well conceived park for baseball. And hopefully in the not too distant future, they will get the ownership situation squared around, because, Wayne, as you mentioned, this was an excellent baseball town. It's got a chance to be an excellent baseball town again.
No question about it. Sammy Sosa, Mark Grace, Henry Rodriguez. Heart of the order for the Cubs in a 2-2 ball game. Strike 1 called on Sammy. Well, take a look at it. Through 78 games, these 2 guys are even. So Sammy's on a record trek, but so is Mark McGwire. And you know, when you think about it, Stephen, I was looking at some of the numbers today. I mean, McGuire's got his 35 home runs, his 80-some RBIs. You take a look at Ken Griffey Jr. He has 30 home runs. And Sammy Sosa with his big power numbers. But these huge power hitters, and so often in baseball we hear, well, that power guy, that Reggie Jackson, can lift a ball club up all by himself and carry them through a hot streak. Well, that doesn't happen as much today in baseball, does it? I mean, it still gets down to pitching and defense, getting it done with timely hitting.
Well, you're going to have to score quite obviously, but the team who throws the ball the best coming down the stretch is the team who's going to win it.
Sosa, high fly foul down the right field line.
They even want Sammy for president. I don't think Sammy wants to take that gigantic cut in pay.
And it would be gigantic.
You're not kidding.
But you know, the perks are pretty good with that job. Sammy looks at a pitch outside. It's 2 balls and 2 strikes.
I got a feeling that Pichardo, if he comes into Sammy at all, he's going to come in off the plate. When he tries to get him out, he's going to get him out away. And Sammy's going to have to look that way. He can take the ball easily out in right center field.
3 balls, 2 strikes on Sammy Sosa. Houston still leading Cleveland 2-1 that game in the 6th inning.
There's one of the signs of maturity on the part of Sammy Sosa. Maybe a year ago, he would have swung at the ball in the dirt. He fanned 174 times. Now he just waits back, and he looks for something he can handle.
The payoff. Just foul down the third base line. Steve, I know, I'm pretty sure you and Chip probably mentioned it earlier this week. Sammy Sosa on the cover of Sports Illustrated. An excellent article on Sammy Sosa. Must reading if you're a Cubs fan.
Well, it detailed the maturation process of a very powerful hitter.
The payoff again. Hit sharply on the ground, gobbled up by Lopez. His throw in time to King. 1 away.
That's not the man to try in the infield. Lopez with very good hands, and you saw him gliding to his left, comes up with that one easily and throws it across.
So Mendy Lopez retires Sammy Sosa, and it brings Mark Grace to the plate. Grace an RBI single in the first to plate the first run of the game. Grace some pretty good numbers over the last 55 games, hitting .361 with 7 homers, 18 doubles, and 35 runs batted in.
The Royals think that Grace is going to hit this ball to left and left center.
And a strike on the outside corner evens the count at 1-1.
That's where Johnny Damon is playing him, so you would figure that if Pichardo comes inside, he would be pitching away from the defense. And there's a huge gap in right center.
A little bit low there, and it's 2 balls and 1 strike. Hipolito Pichardo with the delivery. That did paint the corner. 2-2.
With what looks like fairly generous corners, if I'm Pichardo, I have to go out there again.
And the 2-2 delivery pulled foul by Grace. Henry Rodriguez has come around of late, as we mentioned. 4 home runs in his last 4 games.
He's worked long and hard with Jeff Pentland, the fine hitting coach of the Cubs.
Back to the box. Pichardo rather awkwardly flags it down, and they're 2 away.
And there's a look at Jeff Pentland. He's done a great job, and I talked to him today, had a chance to have lunch with him, and I asked him about Sosa. He said, well, Sammy and I worked hard the beginning of the year. We talked. He goes, now I don't say anything to him. He talks to me somewhat. He goes, but there's really nothing to say because he's hitting everything in sight. He said, you don't work that much with the hot hitters. The guys you work with are guys struggling, and Henry was for a while.
Henry 0 for 1 hit into a 4-6-3 inning-ending double play in the first. Well, where'd you go to lunch? You have a little barbecue?
Right at the Palatial Ritz-Carlton, which is a very nice place to stay.
Sure is. Very nice. Chopped it foul. Well, I have already had a couple of Kansas City specialties.
You had the ribs here. Have you been to Arthur Bryant's or the Gates Brothers?
No, I went to a local barbecue place where the locals go, or you tourists go to those other big name places, and they are wonderful places. But I had some good barbecue this afternoon. Last night came in and went to a place called Stroud's, which is a hangout of a lot of baseball people. Some of the best fried chicken you'll ever get. 0-2 pitch is up high. So I've had enough cholesterol and fat in my diet the last 3 weeks, and I've only been here 12 hours or thereabouts. 1 ball, 2 strikes to count. Henry hits it on the ground, and it looks like Pichardo's got that sinker working low in the zone. King to Pichardo covering. 1-2-3 go the Royals. Go the Cubs in the third. We're tied at 2 apiece with the Royals coming to the plate. The patrons enjoying a well done in-game meal down the left field line in the Stadium Club. Top of the order for the Kansas City Royals: Johnny Damon, Jose Offerman, Hal Morris here in the third against Steve Trachsel, tied at 2 apiece. Damon looks at a strike call.
Boy, it's a beautiful night here in Kansas City. Not a cloud in the sky, and it's starting to cool off.
Temperature was 90 degrees at game time. It felt much warmer than that. Well, a little bit like spring training. I believe that's the Royals season ticket sellers group. The Royals Lancers having their annual picnic out there beyond the left field wall. Swing and a miss at a bad pitch by Damon. He's down to the count. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
I'd like to send along a big Cub hello to big Cub fan Aaron Marlier at the Kansas University Medical Center. He's looking on tonight.
Aaron, get well soon. We'll see you at the ballpark. 1-2 delivery. And it's even at 2-2. Damon's first hit was a triple off Tim Belcher, who at the time was with Seattle. He had 3 hits that night. That was the start of his career. August 12th, 1998.
This would be one of the last guys you'd want to walk. He's probably the fastest guy on this team, although he's not the best base stealer. He hasn't really figured out the idiosyncrasies of that quite yet, but he's got tremendous speed once he gets going.
And the pitch is inside, ball 4.
Now you have one of the base runners on. However, you might be able to pick him off because base running has been somewhat of a mystery, and you can believe that Phil Regan, Jim Riggleman, not very happy with the leadoff walk in a tie ball game. Jose Offerman, a pretty good hit and run man. He has grounded into 6 double plays. And Damon, with that blinding speed, he's stolen 10 bases, but he's been caught 9 times.
Offerman fly to center field his first time up. Showed bunt, pulled it back, and takes ball 1.
There's a look at Richie Dower, a former teammate of mine, and now Phil Regan is going to come to the mound. He's not happy at all with what Steve Trachsel is doing out there tonight. He's been nipping at the corners. He gave away a 2-0 lead, and he wants to get him back on track.
Sounds like you're describing a typical American League pitcher. Picking at the corners, giving away leads. and that would evoke the response, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Well, we're in an American League ballpark, and Steve is pitching like an American leaguer so far. Our next telecast tomorrow night from beautiful Kauffman Stadium, 7 o'clock Central Time. Sammy Sosa, the Cubs against the Kansas City Royals. Kevin Tampany and Jose Rosado.
Looks to me like you might have a shot at picking Damon off first base if you make a real good move on your first move.
Again, the toss over to first. Damon dives back safely. Offerman the hitter. 1 ball, no strikes. Again, he shows bunt, pulls it back, and takes ball 2.
In Jose Offerman's first National League at bat, he homered off Dennis Martinez, who was then pitching for Montreal. He became the 5th Dodger at that point to homer in his first at bat.
White Sox lead Milwaukee 1-0. That game in the top of the 4th. Bottom of the 5th inning. Montreal leading Baltimore 9-2. Detroit and Cincinnati tied at 3 apiece. Bottom of the 7th. Houston leads Cleveland 2-1. That game bottom of the 7th. Well hit deep to right field, and it is gone. Jose Offerman with his 4th home run of the season, a 2-run shot off Steve Trachsel, scoring Johnny Damon ahead of him, and the Royals lead 4-2.
Steve Trachsel keeps falling behind, and these Royal hitters keep making him pay for it. That was a 2-0 pitch, and Jose Offerman, not known for a whole lot of power, put a charge into that one and hit it up in the seats. So just like that, the Royals lead by a pair. And unfortunately for the Cubs, Steve Trachsel has now yielded his 10th home run. Much better than last season, but damaging tonight.
Hal Morris, the hitter, fly to left his first trip to the plate. That's strike 1.
34 runs batted in for Jose Offerman, who has been an offensive star since coming over from the Dodgers, where he really struggled with both the bat and the glove.
On the ground, deep in the hole, gets past Morandini, and it'll be a base hit for Hal Morris.
Steve Trachsel's got hurt on a 3-1 pitch, and he just gets hurt on a 2-0 pitch. It's a high fastball to Jose Offerman, and you'd never know he wasn't a power hitter by that shot.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Exactly. There's the lady who caught the ball. How about that? She's happy about it. Hal Morris aboard at first. Still nobody out. We're in the bottom of the 3rd, and now the Royals leading 4-2. Jeff King, the hitter, a strikeout victim his first trip to the plate, and he looks a strike 1 call.
King doesn't have great speed, and he's grounded into a double play 5 times this year. So if you can throw the ground ball, you're going to be able to turn a pair. Morris also does not have particularly good speed, only 1 stolen base, and he's had some leg problems, so don't worry about him at first.
Let's pause here for station identification.
This is America's #1 sports station, WGN, Chicago.
Kauffman Stadium, Kansas City, Missouri. Wayne Larrabee and Steve Stone. Great to have you with us tonight for Cubs baseball. The Cubs jumped out to a 2-0 lead in the top of the 2nd inning and have fallen behind the Royals, who have scored 2 in the 2nd and 2 in the bottom of the 3rd. Hal Morris aboard at first. Still nobody out at the count of 1 ball, 1 strike on Jeff King. 1-2. King knocked in 11 runs during that 7-2 road trip for the Royals. Steve Trachsel laboring as he has hit his last couple of starts. Morris the lead at first. The pitch is cut on and sliced down the right field line, and that's foul, and was dropped by a fan down the line.
Largest crowd for a night game at Kauffman Stadium was 41,860 back on July 26th of 1980, and that was the year that George Brett won the MVP and the year that the Royals went to the World Series against the Fightin' Phils.
Do you remember who their manager was that year?
Jim Fry.
Yes, indeed.
And I remember Willie Wilson struck out 13 times in the World Series.
There, a look at some of the championship banners they have here. Division championships, league championships, and one World Series championship banner.
Steve Trachsel is thrown to first base, and quite literally Hal Morris could topple back on the bag. He's taken a 2-step lead. There's a foul ball.
In the hole. Glove by Blauser to Morandini. Safe. All hands are safe.
I would think the bullpen should start to get to work at this point. A good play by Jeff Blauser, but Hal Morris, despite having no lead, able to beat the play at second. It's a real good effort by Blauser as he goes to Morandini. Morris in just ahead of the throw, and runners at first and second, and still nobody out for the most powerful man on this team, Dean Palmer. but he's a guy without a great deal of speed and a man who could easily ground into a double play. He's grounded into 8 of them.
6 hits now for the Royals. Palmer tripled his first trip to the plate, hits it on the ground. This should be tailor-made for 2. Blauser, Morandini, Grace. Did they get him? No. Palmer able to beat it down the line, and a hard slide into second base by Jeff King.
The right fielder, Larry Sutton.
This ball hit slowly, and King going in hard at second. Looks to me like Blauser might have double clutched just a bit, and that allowed Dean Palmer to beat the play, and the bullpen is indeed up and going, and it's Dave Stevens.
So they get 1 out. Royals have runners at the corners, and Larry Sutton, who singled into center in the second inning. 1 for 1 tonight. Al Morris at third. On at first, Dean Palmer. A wave and a miss by Sutton. Sutton helped lead the Fighting Illini of Illinois to 2 Big Ten baseball titles. As Steve told you, selected in the 21st round of the 1992 June draft by the Royals. He spent the better part of the last 6 years honing his craft in the minors, and is getting his opportunity to play this season for the most part.
Well, they're pretty happy with what he's done so far. And he's getting an opportunity to try to drive in some runs in this Royal lineup, and anybody that can provide some offense will get an opportunity. But they are looking for starters and some guys in the middle in relief.
1 ball, 1 strike. Trachsel again changing speeds, and a wave and a miss by Sutton. So Trachsel ahead this time in the count. 1 ball and 2 strikes.
Sutton knows if he can make some contact with his speed, he can probably beat a double play in the infield and maybe get the run home, but making contact will be the key. Now Tyler Houston wanted a fastball inside, and Steve Trachsel backs off.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Dumped into left field. Waiting for it, Valdez. Will they test his arm? Yes, they do. Here comes Palmer, and the throw is cut off. So the Royals score their 3rd run of the inning.
Sutton has his 2nd run batted in, his 28th of the year. And as you can see, Pedro not going to throw anybody out.
Like that, Hal Morris coming across to score. And it'll bring Jeff Conine to the plate. So Sutton, a sacrifice fly. The Royals leading 5-2 with 2 men out in the bottom of the 3rd. Conine popped out to the second baseman Morandini, his first trip to the plate. Pitch is up high for ball 1.
Steve has kept that fastball up in the zone quite a bit tonight, and that's one of the reasons why the Royals, who are not an offensive powerhouse, have 5 on the board in less than 3 innings.
The 1-0 delivery. There's a strike called, and it's 1-1. Trachsel coming in. The trend was not good. During his previous 5 starts, had given up 22 earned runs in 30 1/3 innings of work. Dean Palmer, the runner at third, or the runner at first, I should say. This pitch is whacked foul, and it's 1-2.
Coming into tonight's action, the Royals in a 14-team American League are 12th in hitting, 11th in pitching, and 11th in defense. And that's one of the reasons why they are struggling this year. But they've won 7 of their last 10, and tonight they've looked like a pretty good offensive club.
One ball, 2 strikes. Got him fishing. Swing and a miss, strike 3, but the Royals 3 runs on 3 hits. They leave a man at the end of 3. Kansas City leading 5-2. Urban Utopia, Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City.
I used to eat just down the road here at a place called Stevenson's Apple Farm. And it was right in the middle of this beautifully wooded area. Apple cider was one of the big things. Of course, then on what they paid us in the major leagues, that's all we could get. But
good looking crowd on hand as well. Now the Cubs are trailing now 5-2, and they bring Houston, Ori, and Valdez to the plate. Pichardo, a good crisp fastball to the outside corner to Tyler Houston, who's 0 for 1 tonight.
Cubs have their work cut out for him, because if you looked at the ERAs on Pichardo, he gets strong in the middle.
On the ground, Offerman. In time to King, and Houston retired.
The reason why a sinker baller would get much stronger in the middle innings is that sinker obviously moves more as he gets a little more fatigued. So where you can get to him early in the game when the sinker stays up, the middle innings he gets a little bit tougher. But the fact is that this is a man that's moved from the bullpen to the rotation. So the last 3 innings, if he's around, that's where he usually gets hurt. I don't expect Tony Muser to go real deep with him in the game, but the Cubs have got to start scoring on him now.
Kevin Ori, the hitter, walked and scored his first trip to the plate. As we've been mentioning, a lot of Cubs fans here. WGN is seen on basic cable in the Kansas City area. Pichardo missing a load. It's 2 balls and no strikes.
There's the fiery manager of the Royals, Tony Muser.
Recently suspended 8 games for his involvement in a melee here with the Angels, right?
Yes, and I'm kind of happy that Tony got a job finally, because he was the bridesmaid a number of times in the major leagues. He's a real good, solid baseball man. Did a great job with the Cubs in close to 5 years as a coach, getting his opportunity in a difficult situation with the Royals. And he's trying to make the best of it so far.
2-1 pitch is chopped foul to even the count at 2-2. Herc Robinson, the general manager of the Kansas City Royals, has been with the organization for better than 20 years. He and John Sherholtz were the young bucks under general manager Joe Burke back in the late 70s. Sherholtz now the general manager at Atlanta. Friendly fire in that Cubs dugout. Lance Johnson scattered by the foul chop.
Well, I think the last thing Lance Johnson needs is to get hit by a foul ball. He's still trying to battle to get off the disabled list. And Lance probably figures that he's got a magnet attached to him somewhere.
Ori hanging tough at 2 balls and 2 strikes.
That one went back to Pedro Valdez in the on-deck circle, and he made some friends by tossing the souvenir away.
The look on Lance Johnson's face is kind of like, hey, Kevin, try hitting it the other way, like in play. Here's the 2-2. 3 balls, 2 strikes.
Pichardo would like to get Ori out inside. That would be his first choice. He thinks if he sinks it inside, he can get that ground ball to the left side.
Popped it up. Foul territory, third base side. Dean Palmer calls off the catcher Fasaro and makes the catch. So Sal Fasano, the catcher, gave it a look, but Dean Palmer took charge and made the play. 2 men down for Pedro Valdez. Valdez a double, a run scoring double down the left field line in the 2nd inning.
Jeff Conine moves over closer toward the line if he figures that Pichardo is going to throw that sinker away.
And he did, but a little bit low.
There's Jeff Conine playing Pedro Valdez like a right-handed pull hitter.
And the 1-0 delivery. And this one looped into center field for a base hit. So Pedro Valdez 2 for 2 here tonight. 4th hit of the night for the Cubs.
The center fielder, Jose Hernandez.
Bob Nelson, one of the local scribes here in Kansas City, would like to say hi to his brother Gene back in Westmont, Illinois. Gene recovering from throat cancer treatments. And Gene, we wish you all the best.
Pichardo has given up 7 home runs in now 57 innings of work. And Jose has been hitting home runs with regularity. He's got 11 of them.
2 out, runner at first, and the first pitch to Jose Hernandez is ball 1. Jose walked in the second. Pichardo has walked 3 here tonight. 2 of those who walked scored for the Cubs. 1-0 pitch, and that's on the outside corner. It's 1-1.
This should really play into the hands of Jose Hernandez, because he does like when pitchers come right at him with the hard stuff, and that's generally what Pichardo does.
Pichardo, you estimate about a low 90s fastball, basically, maybe?
Yeah, tops low 90s.
He hits the outside corner with an off-speed pitch, and it's 1-2.
Sal Fasano just told Pichardo, you better hesitate 1 second because you came very close to balking. This one there, and that's the radar gun, which shows the speed of the pitches.
Quick toss to first base. Pedro Valdez back.
Let's see if Jose can go with this slider.
The 1-2 pitch down low in the dirt. 2 balls and 2 strikes, but you're right about Fasano. He does not let anything get by him.
He came in billed as a real fine defensive catcher who normally throws very well, but is having some shoulder problems. But it is tough. And they're going to call the throw to first. But Valdez back. There's a look at Sal Fasano, who's not known for much of a hitter. Had some good power numbers in the minor leagues, not up here. But he's their best defensive catcher.
Again, another good block. Fasano lost the ball for a moment, but not enough for Valdez to advance.
Well, that's the one thing that Pichardo didn't want to do, go to 3-2, because now Pedro will be off with a pitch, and on a double he'll score easily. Jim Riggleman looking for some offense. He's seen his team take a 2-0 lead, only to fall behind 5-2.
Jose, good cut at that one. Valdez was going. 3-2 pitch, of course. 2 men out. Cubs scored a run in the first, another in the second. And that's been about it. Meanwhile, the Royals 2 in the bottom of the second, 3 more in the bottom of the third. We're in the top of the 4th inning. Once again, the payoff. Line back up toward the middle. Offerman had him played well and makes the throw in time to get Hernandez to end the inning. No runs, a base hit, no errors. The Cubs leave a man. Middle of the 4th in Kansas City. The Royals still lead 5-2. First pitch to Mendy Lopez. He takes it for strike 1 call. Lopez tripled in the second inning, driving in a run for the Royals. We're in the bottom of the 4th inning. The Royals leading the Cubs 5-2. 1 ball, 1 strike. Sal Fasano on deck, and then Johnny Damon, top of the order, to face Trachsel here in the 4th. Houston still leading Cleveland 2-1, bottom of the 7th inning, but the Indians have 2 on with 2 out.
The Royals invited Lee Smith to spring training. He didn't make the ball club, and now he's pitching Double-A for the Houston Astros, trying to fight his way back to the big leagues.
Wow.
The venerable Lee Smith.
2-1 delivery, and Trachsel changed speeds, gets the outside corner. It's 2-2.
Lee, 40 years old. They list him at 6'6", 270.
Just hasn't gotten into 6'6", 270.
270.
You know, there's a spot on the Bears offensive line at guard that this, a body like that could fill. Called strike 3 of the outside corner. 3rd strikeout of the game for Steve Trachsel.
Mendy shaking his head. I can understand that. Houston wants it outside. He's got to move the glove even further outside, and it's a called 3rd.
I always thought the American League strike zone was tight. It's been anything but tight here tonight.
This one stretches to the Royals dugout.
Pitch is fouled back by Sal Fasano, who is 0 for 1, grounded out in the second inning. There we go. Chicago Bears fan here. How about that?
We were right across the parking lot numerous times.
Right next to Royal Stadium, or just across the parking lot, is Kansas City's Arrowhead Stadium. 1 ball, 1 strike the count now on Sal Fasano.
Good news out of Cleveland. Sandy Alomar with an RBI double, and they have at least tied it up. That game's still in the bottom of the 7th. Go Tribe.
Well, you're a big Clevelander, a native Clevelander.
Yes, sir. And the Tribe is awfully tough at home, meaning it's going to be tough for Houston to do a great deal with them. Houston just happy to be out of Colorado, where they're 6-23 lifetime.
2-1 delivery, fouled off, and it's 2-2.
They lost 2 to the Rockies in Colorado before they made a hasty retreat and headed to the shores of Lake Erie, where they take on a very tough Indian team.
Team is getting better as the season goes along. That young pitching, Steve, we've been hearing so much about over the years, starting to come around for the Tribe.
Well, when you can start Bartolo Colon and Jared Wright along with Dave Burba, you got a pretty good threesome. And they were able to defeat the Cubs in 2 games, and we didn't see any of those pitchers.
2-2 delivery, and that's down low to fill the count of 3-2. Sal Fasano tells an interesting story. He was in an establishment with Mark Gubicza and Jeff Montgomery a couple of years ago, and some guy walks up and says, "Hey, you're Mark Gubicza. Hey, you're Jeff Montgomery." He walked up to Sal and said, "Hey, didn't you work on my house last week?" So he has a good sense of humor. Batting in the 9-hole here tonight. The payoff. Chopped it foul. You know, come to think of it, Stoney, I think I hired him to do my deck. Did the down payment of $300, and the guy never came back.
Well, he was born in Chicago and now lives in Joliet.
I told you. Payoff pitch is fouled off and out of play.
And he's looking for a home here in Kansas City.
Kevin Tampany will pitch tomorrow.
And he's happy he's not throwing Sunday afternoon. I talked to him. He said, "No, I'm going to leave that to Jeremy Gonzalez. I'll work at night. It's a little cooler."
The payoff again to Fasano, lifted to right field. Sosa started back, now comes in a step or 2 and makes the catch. 2 men down.
Sal is a big man.
He sure is. Good dimensions to him.
6'2". They list him at 220. I think he has expanded his horizons since that estimation.
If not his horizons, maybe his belt line.
But he's done a nice job catching here for Kansas City, and he's actually won the #1 starter's job.
Top of the order, and Johnny Damon. Sal Fasano, good guy. Damon looks at strike 1 call. Damon popped out of the first. He walked and scored in the 3rd.
And his leadoff walk started the trouble for Trachsel as he gave up 3 last inning.
Chopped foul at the plate. No balls and 2 strikes in this inning, unlike the others. Trachsel working ahead of the count. Tyler Houston flashes the sign to Steve Trachsel, and here's the 0-2 delivery. Pulled it foul past former Gold Glove second baseman Frank White, now the first base coach of these Kansas City Royals.
Frank White came out of the Royals Academy, started by Sid Thrift, and Frank White, one of the few members who really go on to stardom in the major leagues.
A wave and a miss by Johnny Damon. A 1-2-3 inning for Steve Trachsel. He has now struck out 4. But at the end of 4, it's still Kansas City 5, Chicago 2. Bowser will lead it off for the Chicago Cubs as we go to the top half of the 5th inning. Hi, everybody. Wayne Larrabee along with Steve Stone. Cubs got off to a good start, leading 2-0, but have fallen behind.
And it's to the top of the order with Jeff Blauser, so maybe they can get something going against Hipolito Pichardo.
Right back up the middle. That's a base hit for Jeff Blauser, so that gets things started for the Cubs here in the 5th.
And Wayne got the memo on the white shirts tonight, so we look exactly alike, and it's good to have you in here sitting in for Chip Carey, and hopefully the Cubs can come back in this one because the Indians have come back against Houston. They now lead 4-2 in the 8th. Watch it again, right back up the middle. And it's a play that Pichardo should have made but didn't, and it goes as a base hit.
So Blauser aboard for Mickey Morandini. And the first pitch to Morandini on the outside corner for a strike. There's the story on the Astros Indians in the 8th inning. The Yankees have caught the Mets 3-3 at Shea in the top of the 6th. 1 ball, 1 strike the count on Mickey Morandini. Toronto leads Atlanta 5-1. That game bottom of the 7th inning. Infield looking to kill 2. This one dumped down the line, just foul out of play.
Toronto must have gotten a lot of confidence from batting around Montreal in their head-to-head series, because they're playing pretty well against our league's best.
Either that or the big club softened up those Braves for him, right? Taking 3 out of 4 this week. That was a strange situation. 2 games in New York and then 2 in Atlanta in that 4-game series. It was really
I like
weird.
that.
A hot shot, Offerman for second for 1, and King able to make the play and keep a toe on the bag, apparently. Dan Radisson not happy with that call, but it goes 4-6-3 on the double play, 2 men down.
Jeff King was a third baseman with Pittsburgh. Then he moved to first, and he is a magician at first. Good effort by Offerman. The throw is off the mark by Lopez, but Jeff King kept a foot on the bag long enough, apparently, and it looks to me like he didn't. But Joe Brinkman said he did, and he gets a deciding vote.
2 on, nobody on for Sammy Sosa. So Pichardo relieved, obviously, that he faces Sosa with the bases clean. Sosa 1 for 2, a single in the 1st inning. Strong effort by Pichardo after a somewhat shaky start. Mendy Lopez, nicely done, and the side retired. No runs, a base hit, no errors, nobody left. Middle of 5 in Kansas City. Royals 5 and the Cubs 2. Bottom of the 5th inning, Royals leading the Cubs 5-2. Jose Offerman, Hal Morris, Jeff King, the 2, 3, and 4 hitters for the Royals. And hit on the ground to the first baseman Grace, unassisted, 1 away.
It's been a lot different for Steve Trachsel when he stayed ahead. He's gotten ahead of the hitters since that disastrous 3rd inning, and he's retired the hitters.
The Royals scored 3 runs on 3 hits in that 3rd inning, including a 2-run homer by Jose Offerman to take command of the ball game. Jim Riggleman pacing anxiously. Dan Radisson behind him, his first base coach. Trachsel to the motion to Hal Morris, who's 1 for 2, and this one hit right at Pedro Valdez. 2 men down.
Well, this is more like it from Steve. He's much more aggressive on the mound, getting either the first or second pitch over the plate consistently.
First baseman, Jeff King.
Jeff King, the first baseman, 1 for 2, called out on strikes in the 2nd. He singled in the 3rd.
You know, the Cubs originally drafted Jeff King in the 23rd round of the free agent draft in 1983. But he did not sign, and then became the #1 pick in the country for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
We used to show a picture of the Pirates mascot and Jeff King.
Looks just like him.
Doesn't he, though? 1 ball, 1 strike. Hey, Cubs fans, Wednesday, July 1st is St. Paul Federal 1938 World Series Program Day at Wrigley Field. First 10,000 fans attending the Cubs Diamondbacks game receive a 1938 World Series program. Compliments of St. Paul Federal. For tickets, stop by the Wrigley box office or call 312-831-CUBS. The 2-1 delivery, and the count runs to 3-1.
Bill Regan talking with Kevin Tapani.
That pitch is outside, ball 4. Second walk issued by Trachsel. Well,
here's a guy you don't want to fall behind, and that's Dean Palmer. He had some huge home run numbers with the Texas Rangers.
Palmer hit over 20 homers 4 seasons in his big league career and twice hit 30+ homers. And you mentioned he put some huge numbers on the board. He had 38 homers in 1996 with the Texas Rangers. 1 ball, no strikes.
They got Terry Pendleton on this Kansas City team, but he's on the disabled list right now. And one of the big losses, Kevin Apier, also on the disabled list. They're probably not going to get anything from him this year. And when you lose a #1 starter, that has a ripple effect down through your pitching staff. And Apier was their #1.
1 ball, no strikes. Nice block of the pitch in the dirt by Tyler Houston. 2 balls and no strikes the count. The White Sox are leading Milwaukee 1-0, bottom of the 7th inning. It's Kevin Apier right there. A recent health setback while in Florida. There's the White Sox score. Baldwin has struck out 3 so far. Got him on a high fastball. And it's 2-1.
Trachsel, after staying ahead to both Offerman and Morris and retiring both of them, walked King. Now he's fallen behind Palmer. And these are the 2 real dangerous power hitters in the middle of this lineup.
Two out, 1 on, and the 2-1 pitch. 3 balls, 1 strike. So he has done what you warned he shouldn't do, and that is fall behind Dean Palmer.
Well, there's a chance that King might be going here. He's stolen 5 bases, has yet to be caught. And he's got a good lead off first, and Trachsel has to make a very tough pitch to a tough hitter. It would be a gamble to send King, however, because Palmer does swing and miss quite a bit.
On the outside corner for a called strike, and it's 3-2.
Now Mark Grace will move behind Jeff King at first base, and he'll get a running start. That outside corner awfully generous. Maybe he'll go back out there again.
Palmer tripled off the right field wall back in the 2nd inning. The payoff pulls it foul on the left side, out of play. A warm, sultry night in Kansas City, Missouri. The Cubs paying their first visit ever to Kauffman Stadium. And she's saying, Dad, I think it's time to get some ice cream. And Dad say, wait till this half inning is over. And the tug of war is on. The payoff again. Oh, he changed speeds in a wave and a miss by Dean Palmer. No runs, no hits, no errors, and a man left for the Royals in the 5th. We're heading to the 6th, and Kansas City leads 5-2. 5 and 6 hitters coming up for the Cubs here in the 6th inning against Hipolito Pichardo. So, Mr. Stone, it's time to get something going.
Well, one of the keys to beating the Royals is getting into that bullpen. It's been abysmal this year. And with the 3 left-handers, maybe the Cubs can get something going here in the 6th.
Grace, a run-scoring single in the 1st. He is 1 for 2, and he looks at ball 1. Two balls, no strikes. Mets edge out in front of the Yankees. Ryan McRae, his 9th home run of the season. And it's 3 balls, no strikes.
Pichardo's only had 8 starts this year, so he might be in unfamiliar territory. He has yet to complete one of his starts.
There's a strike, and it's 3-1 to Grace. His longest outing, if I'm not mistaken, is 7 innings, and that came April 4th at Minnesota. Ball 4, and Grace is aboard. It's the 4th walk of the ball game by Pichardo.
Bruce Keeson on the phone, but there's not a whole lot of help. And that is Tom Bergmeyer, the bullpen coach. Tony Muser usually holds his breath when you go to that pen. Jim Pitsley starting to get loose.
Henry Rodriguez, the hitter, and fouls one off on the third base side out of play.
I'll give you an idea. Pitsley's ERA at 6.06. Their closer, Jeff Montgomery's ERA at 6.91. And despite the fact he saved 15, he struggled. And there's a lady who is awfully happy with that souvenir.
Last 10 days, Sammy Sosa and Henry Rodriguez atop the heap. Taylor made. Lopez to Offerman on to King. 6, 4, 3, 2 men down.
That's the second time Henry's grounded into a double play, and the third time tonight that the Cubs have been thwarted in what looked like a pretty promising inning, only to see this middle infield and a very slick fielding Mendy Lopez start a double play or be the middleman on a double play.
Steve, you pointed out in the first 2 innings where the Cubs got their 2 runs, Pichardo was up in the zone with most of his pitches. He's been down in the zone now, and he's getting that sinker ball working, although this one taken deep to right field by Tyler Houston, and it is gone up into the fountains in right center field. Tyler Houston, a solo home run.
Tyler Houston has been welcomed back into the lineup in a big way. That's his 3rd home run, his 11th driven in, the 8th given up by Pichardo. And he's starting to lose it. Cubs sneak within 2. Not much doubt about this one. It's a rocket. And Pichardo did indeed get this one up in the zone, and Tyler Houston puts a charge into it. The only question, how far would it go?
Oh, man. Up into the fountain in right center field. Kevin Orre, first pitch, hits it on the ground to the shortstop. Lopez, wrong place to hit it. 6-3. The Cubs are retired. They get the run on the solo home run by Tyler Houston. In the middle of the 6th, things have tightened. It's 5-3 Royals. Jim Pitsley warming up in the bullpen for the Royals continues to work, and you wonder if maybe a 6th inning was it for Pichardo. Only time will tell.
I would think that Pitsley would come into the ball game. I think he's gotten exactly what he could get out of Pichardo, and he's going to have the lead. I think if he leaves him in much longer, he will not have the lead.
He got that one pitch up to Tyler Houston after inducing a ground ball double play. Strike 1 the call on Larry Sutton. Sutton singled in the 2nd. He had a sacrifice fly to left in the 3rd. A line drive to center field. Jose Hernandez coming on for it. Can't get there in time. So Sutton is now 2 for 2 in the ball game.
This is a big inning for Steve Trachsel because the Cubs have gotten within 2. That Royal bullpen has been less than effective this year, but you got to hold the Royals right there and give this offense a chance. And Phil Regan on the phone, he wants the bullpen up and going.
And here is Jeff Conine, MVP of the 1996 All-Star Game at Texas. Hit an 8th inning game-winning homer off Oakland's Steve Ontiveros. 0 for 2 here tonight is Conine. 1 ball, no strikes.
He's another man you can double. If he hits the ball on the ground, he's grounded into 4 double plays in just 38 games. And Bob Patterson loosening up in the pen.
Sutton the runner at first, nobody out. Bottom of the 6th inning, Cubs trailing by 2. A little bit high, and it's 2 balls and no strikes. The senior producer director of Cubs baseball is Arnie Harris. Tonight's game produced by John Walgren. The associate producer is Mark Brady, and the coordinating producer Kim Fields. The executive producer of WGN Sports is Bob Burwell. I'm Wayne Larrivee, pinch hitting for Chip Carey, along with Steve Stone from beautiful Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City.
Last time Trachsel paid a whole lot of attention to Sutton on first base. Lopez hit a triple. And Conine has always been tough on Trachsel.
reaches for it, lifts a high fly down the right field line. Sosa giving chase, but this one's out of play. One of the biggest crowds of the season, if not the biggest, for the Royals here tonight.
You would think, as you look around, that this crowd might be their biggest crowd of the year. Well, they gave away jackets tonight, and at 90 degrees at game time, you can understand why they would jam the ballpark.
Timing's everything, Stoney. I mean, really, 90 degrees in Kansas City this time of year is kind of cool, to be honest with you. 2 balls and 1 strike to count. There's another toss over there. I wonder. Red Sox defeat the Marlins tonight.
Pedro Martinez probably going to the All-Star game with that 10-2 record.
Maybe starting it. 2-1 delivery is line off the glove of Blauser into center field. Sutton has to hold at second. Runners at first and second. And nobody out.
Well, that time Jeff Blauser almost ran right into the line drive. Conines always hit Trachsel well, and just off the end of the glove, that rocket up the middle. And now let's see if they've got Lopez bunting. Richie Dower talking it over with him. Dower was a great bunter in his day, also probably the best hit and run man of his time. And they don't use the hit and run very often. They did use it on the last pitch, but the ball was hit so hard, and that Sutton, who doesn't have good speed, couldn't advance to third.
The only way Blauser got as close to that play as he did was that he was going towards second to cover because they started the runner. Otherwise, that's a clean base hit.
And Mark Grace in very close. Steve Trachsel getting the signal from Mark Grace. They want to see on the bunt play if Trachsel charges straight in. It looks like Blauser is going to go to third base as Ori charges straight in.
Trachsel a whirl towards second. And again, Conine at first, Sutton at second base. The hitter, Mendy Lopez, tripled in a run of the second. 1 for 2 tonight. Grace on the infield grass defensively. Squares to bunt, pitch in the dirt, blocked by Tyler Houston. No advance.
Pretty good play by Tyler. That one dropped down, and that's a huge difference because if the runners advance, you don't have to worry about the bunt. And if I'm Tony Muser, giving the signs to Richie Dower, I'm telling Lopez swing away because you got everybody in that infield moving. The whole infield is in flux, and there's a lot of holes if you hit a ground ball just about anywhere.
This will add a few points to this kid's batting average, right? In that situation. 1 ball, no strikes to count. The bunt is on. Oh, he swings away, as you suggest. The tag by Morandini on the runner Conine, and a quick toss to Grace, who recovers back to first base, and a double play.
Boy, the Cubs get a tremendous break because the only guy in his regular position was Mickey Morandini. And Lopez hits it right to him. And there's nothing in the world that Conine can do. If Conine just stops, there's nobody covering second base. But he was too close to Morandini, and the Cubs get a very important double play.
Meanwhile, moving to third base, Larry Sutton, but 2 men down for Sal Fasano. Meanwhile, the Twins lead the Cardinals 2-0 in the 7th. Mark McGwire 0 for 3 in that game. Trachsel delivers strike 1 call to Fasano, who's 0 for 2 tonight.
Well, what a tremendous break for the Cubs. The one place in the infield you could hit it where the Cubs had a defender was exactly where it was hit. Maybe that is a good omen.
The 0-1 delivery. Chopped it just foul on the third base side. Larry Sutton had to skip out of the way of that one. As Steve mentioned, Fasano, born in Chicago, resides in Joliet, Illinois. Another famous athlete from Joliet, one Tom Thayer, offensive guard on the Chicago Bears Super Bowl team.
And Joliet Jeff Reed of the Colorado Rockies.
No balls, 2 strikes to count on Fasano, and he takes it upstairs, 1-2. Sutton 90 feet away. 2 men down. And a wave and a miss by Fasano. The inning is over. 6 strikeouts for Trachsel. The Royals strand a man at third at the end of 6. It's still a 2-run ball game. We head to the top of the 7th inning. Pedro Valdez, Jose Hernandez, and Jeff Blauser to face a new hurler for the Royals, Jim Pitsley.
See the ERA at 6.06 on for the 18th time. 43 hits in 35 2/3 innings. 20 walks, so he's had problems with his control. He is a king-size right-hander. Pitsley at 6'7", 220 pounds. Out of Du Bois, Pennsylvania. Last year 5-8 with a 5.46 ERA. He was a starting pitcher last year for the Royals. This year he's moved to the pen. And he'll face 2 for 2, Pedro Valdez, trying to protect a 2-run lead.
Pedro is 2 for 2. Doubled in a run of the second. He singled in the 4th. 1 ball, no strikes. Matter of fact, Steve, if you look at the bottom third of the order, Ori, Valdez, and Hernandez, they've been on base 4 times tonight. 2 hits and 2 walks. There's a strike, and it's 1-1. Let's pause for station identification.
This is America's #1 sports station, WGN, Chicago.
Back at Kauffman Stadium, there's a soft liner into right center field, and Pedro Valdez is 3 for 3. A leadoff single by Valdez. We're at Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City, Missouri, the former Royals Stadium. Wayne Larrivee along with Steve Stone. Chip Carey will be back in the saddle again on Sunday, completing a weekend assignment out of the West Coast.
And the bullpen up and going again. It's Tony Muser. Doesn't have much of a feeling of comfort when that pen comes into the game.
The left-hander up now. And that would be Mark Wisenat. Matt Wisenat, I should say. Pitch up high, a fastball for ball 1.
If you're patient with Pitsley, he will eventually give you something good to swing at. He comes right over the top, not much deception, and not much movement on that fastball.
1 ball, no strikes the count. Valdez at first, Jose Hernandez the hitter. Line drive into right field, coming on for it, making the catch is Larry Sutton, and quickly back to first base. Pedro Valdez, 1 man down.
That one hit right on the button. Unfortunately, it was hit right at Sutton. So 2 hitters and 2 line drives. Now the Cubs move to the top of the order. Pitsley throws it right down the middle, and Jose hits it right on the nose. That's Sutton right there.
And not only down the middle, a little bit up in the zone too, where the hitter likes it. Jeff Blauser, top of the order, as Steve mentioned, 1 for 2. He also walked and scored in the first inning. Cubs are trailing 5-3, and that's a strike call. Been a while since Jeff Blauser has hit one out.
April 16th, his one and only. Be a good time to hit one out here tonight. The wind is blowing toward left field.
The 0-1 delivery, fastball in, and it's 1 ball, 1 strike.
Pitsley has given up 4 in 36 innings.
Worked as a starter on Monday at Cincinnati, tossing 5 shutout innings against the Reds. But then again, the Reds haven't been hitting anybody lately. 1 ball, 1 strike. And it's 2-1. Well, as you mentioned, Steve, now the Cubs are into the tenuous portion of the Royals pitching staff. And that bullpen, especially short of Montgomery. Runner going, pitch is swung on and fouled back out of play. It's 2 balls, 2 strikes.
Jim Riggleman calling for the hit and run after grounding into 3 double plays tonight. You want to stay out of it with Jeff Blauser. He's got a banged up left leg. Not only did he take a foul ball off that left leg, but then he was kicked in the same leg on a broken up double play that came right before the 3-run Tony Clark home run. Damian Easley doing the honors last night.
2-2. Gets past Fasano, Back to the screen, moving into second base into scoring position is Pedro Valdez.
Pitsley with wild pitch number 2. And Fasano, who prides himself on stopping pitches by him, just looks at that one as Valdez moves into second, and now they have a new set of signs.
Also, Steve, I wonder if he might have been a little crossed up with that pitch. Sal usually reacts very quickly to balls in the dirt, and he did not on that particular play, but that was a tough pitch to handle.
The arms in the outfield not too good for Kansas City, so on a base hit you would think that Valdez would score, except perhaps on a real hard hit ball right at Sutton.
Payoff pitch, Blauser. He chops it towards short. Lopez only play to first, and the runner moves along to third. Pedro Valdez, there are 2 men down. You got to be impressed with this Lopez.
I think he's got tremendous hands at shortstop. Morandini looking for his first hit, and it would be a big one. Get the Cubs within 1 and maybe more if he can take it right down the line.
Mickey 0 for 3, bounced into a double play in the 5th inning. 2 out, runner on third, and this one chopped to second. Offerman gets the tailor-made bounce, throws him out, and the side is retired. So Pitsley works around a leadoff single by Valdez. They are stretching in Kansas City with the hometown Royals leading the Cubs 5-3. Bottom of the 7th inning, Steve Trachsel has hung pretty tough here. Matter of fact, he has blanked the Royals since the 3rd. He gave up all 5 of the Kansas City runs in the 2nd and 3rd innings, and the top of the order. Damon pulls it right at Mark Grace, who nabs the line drive, the low liner, for out number 1.
The second baseman.
Mark Grace goes wow because that one was a rocket right at him. He was in respecting the speed of Damon and his bunting ability, and fortunately he got the glove up in time because that was a bullet. But 1 pitch, 1 out. And that's what you're looking for here. You're at the top of the order, and it's dangerous.
Jose Offerman, 2-run homer to highlight the 3-run Kansas City 3rd. And he looks at strike 1 called. The 0-1 delivery is outside. 1 ball, 1 strike. Trachsel falls behind. 2-1.
Bullpen up and going, and let's see how patient Jim Riggleman will be if Steve Trachsel has any problems here in the 7th. You got Bob Patterson loosened and ready to go.
There's a bunt attempt at a base hit. He fouls it off. 2-2. 3rd inning. Watch this pitch up in the zone, and Jose Offerman turned on it like a power hitter. 2-run shot in the 3rd. As I mentioned, that's when the Royals scored 3 to take the lead.
And the 2-run homer, the difference in this one so far is the Cubs trail by 2, but they've got 2 innings left.
The 2-2 pitch to Jose Offerman. Loop toward right field. Sosa on the move, makes the catch. 2 men down.
The designated hitter, Al Morris.
There's a Scott Service, but he's of the pitching variety. Cubs have one of the catching variety. Same name, different spelling. And Hal Morris was a teammate of Barry Larkin and Jim Abbott at the University of Michigan, and they played together for 3 years.
Morris crouching up in the batter's box as the delivery is made.
Chris Sabo, also a member of the Reds and also out of the University of Michigan.
You've got a pretty good program for a Big Ten country up there at Michigan. Grace to Trachsel covering, nicely done. 1-2-3 go the Royals in the 7th, and at the end of 7 complete, the Royals lead the Cubs 5-3. Wayne Larrabee, Steve Stone back at Kauffman Stadium, top of the 8th inning, and the Cubs will have Sosa, Grayson Rodriguez to face Matt Wisenet.
.533 ERA on for the 36th time, and you wonder why Wizenen is in to face Sosa. You can understand where you would bring him in with Grace, Rodriguez, and Houston, but he's got to face a tough right-hander at the top of the inning.
The first pitch to Sammy is down low for ball 1.
Jim Pitsley pitched an inning, gave up a hit, and that was it.
13 groundouts tonight. Again, that's Hipolito Pichardo getting that sinker ball working. Wizenen gets the inside corner, and it's 1-1.
Wizenen 6'3", 215 out of Los Angeles.
Good news from Cleveland. The Tribe over the Astros 4-2.
So there's ground to be gained.
Yes, indeed. Cubs came in, what, 4 back?
5 back.
5 back here tonight. Swing and a miss by Sosa. It's 1-2. A couple of Scott services for you, Stoney.
Stereo Scott service. VAS on the left and the regular service on the right.
And always service with a smile.
No doubt about it.
Remember those old commercials?
Oh, yes.
Oh, my. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Inside, and it's 2-2. Yeah, Sammy Sosa fans all over. And as I mentioned earlier today, they were lined up at about 5 o'clock waiting to get into the ballpark to catch Sammy in BP. And he did not disappoint. The 2-2 pitch. In the air to right field, right at Sutton. 1 away. One out, nobody on, and Mark Grace comes to the plate. He has reached base twice in 3 trips. He singled in a run in the first, he grounded out in the third, and then he walked in the 6th.
They're playing Mark Grace well around toward left and left center. Conine is really over toward the line and fairly shallow in left field. So you would think that Wizenen would be staying away from Grace. You see how the defense is situated. The huge gap in right center and down the line in right.
And the location is outside, and that's where the pitch was, and Grace swings through it for strike 1.
Jeff Montgomery up in the pen along with Scott Service. Montgomery is the closer.
Montgomery has had his ups and downs this season after a good start. Went into a tailspin, but has completed his last 2 assignments in satisfactory fashion. 1 ball, 1 strike now the count on Grace. 1 out, nobody on. We are in the top of the 8th inning, and the Cubs are trailing by 2. Grace ahead in the count, 2-1. The attendance tonight here in the ballpark, 39,008. The largest crowd ever was opening day against Baltimore in 1997 when 40,052 came into the ballpark to see the Royals and the Orioles. Mark even in the count. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Service and Montgomery warming up. Yankees have moved ahead of the Mets 6-4. That game in the top of the 8th at Shea. 3 balls, 2 strikes to Grace.
Well, you'd love to see Mark aboard for home run hitting Henry Rodriguez.
And the payoff. And Grace dumps it into left field, a base hit. So 1 out single by Mark Grace. That's his 2nd hit of the night. Base hit number 8 for the Cubs. So the hits are even at 8 apiece.
Mark Grace just guides this ball into left center field over the head of Lopez. And he's aboard, so that means that Henry now represents a tying run, but Henry's had a tough night.
Henry is 0 for 3. He has a 4-game hitting streak on the line. Twice he has bounded into ground out double plays.
Interested spectator Steve Trachsel.
Henry chops it at the plate and foul ball.
Wizenen tried to get to it to keep it fair. Henry decided he wasn't going to run. He was just going to sit there and hope that it went foul. And lo and behold, it does.
Lo and behold, if it doesn't.
Well, they were going to concede Mark Gray's second base to get the out, as you would expect, and dodge the bullet with Henry Rodriguez, who can take you out easily with one swing. I think Riggs would like to see Henry run those out, though.
I think you're exactly right. Tying run at the plate. No balls and 1 strike the count, and the pitch fouled back against the screen. It's 0-2.
Well, you would think you would see a breaking ball away from Henry here. Cubs have yet to strike out tonight. That will be put to the test if Wisnett just go with a hard slider away.
Wisnett ahead in the count, and he misses outside. 1 ball 2 strikes. Wisnett recorded the first save of his major league and professional career June 15th at Cleveland.
Tyler Houston in the on deck circle, but he's likely to be taken down for a pinch hitter.
1-2 delivery, and Henry stays alive. Atlanta batting in the bottom of the 9th, trailing Toronto 6-3. Philadelphia leading Tampa Bay 7-0. That game in the 9th inning. Swing and a miss, strike 3, and that is a big out for Matt Wisnett and the Royals.
Well, Tyler Houston took 2 steps toward the batter's box, but there's no way that he's going to face the left-hander. So Manny Alexander will get an opportunity to pinch hit. And now with the ball in Tony Muser's court, let's see if he goes to one of the 2 right-handers loosening in the pen, or if he stays with Wisnett.
Coming up after the game on WGN News, the latest on the roof collapse at a Riverside grocery store, plus details on how hot your weather is going to get on WGN News following the game. So Manny Alexander is Jamie Quirk, the bench coach for manager Tony Muser of the Royals. Crosses off one more name on that list of eligible Cubs for this ball game. Alexander steps to the plate. 4 for 11 as a pinch hitter with a homer and 3 runs batted in. Fouls it back against the screen for strike 1.
Well, he's taken a gamble right here by letting the left-hander face Alexander, in that the Cubs don't exactly have a left-hander with any power waiting on the bench.
Cubs are trailing 5-3 in the top of the 8th inning. There's a strike called, and Wisnett moves ahead of the count. No balls and 2 strikes on Manny Alexander. Billy Williams on the phone.
Manny has already had a pinch home run this year, and it came early.
Manny calls for time.
Billy Williams was probably talking about Sandy Martinez because he was making the sign of a catcher, and I'm wondering if they would want Sandy as opposed to Scott Service coming in the ball game for Tyler Houston.
Sandy being down to the bullpen now. The 0-2 delivery. 1 ball 2 strikes.
Pinch hitters in the National League, and as you can see, Manny Alexander has been a pinch hitter deluxe. Only Eddie Williams has been better. And it looks like Scott Service getting ready.
Pulled foul down the left field line.
In a situation where a home run can tie you late in the ball game, most pitchers would just as soon stay away as opposed to coming inside. And I think that Wisnett was very fortunate to get away with that floating breaking ball. Manny got around a little too early. And Jim Riggleman just shaking his head.
1 ball 2 strikes. Inside corner called, strike 3. No runs, a base hit by Grace, no errors. They strand a man. Middle of the 8th at Royal Stadium. Kansas City leading Chicago 5-3. They'll be doing some fireworks after the ball game here tonight in Kansas City, so we're told. And the Cubs hope to spoil that fireworks party. Steve Trachsel still on the mound, and He's facing Jeff King.
He's got service behind the plate, and the first two hitters are the home run hitters for the Royals.
King, Palmer, then Sutton, and Trachsel now even to the count. 1 ball, 1 strike.
We've got to get out of this one and keep it at a 2-run deficit to have a real good shot in the 9th inning.
The Royals scored all 5 of their runs on 6 hits in the first 3 innings of this ball game. And now Trachsel ahead. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Since the 3rd, Trachsel has kept the Royals off the board on just 2 hits. The 1-2 delivery. High and deep to left field. Valdez goes back to the warning track, and this one is gone. Jeff King with his 11th homer of the season. 60th run batted in, and the Royals lead 6-3. Second homer of the night off Trachsel.
16 now for King. And Phil Regan on the phone. Trachsel bidding for his first complete game. 16 and 60. Pretty good power numbers for Jeff King. We got that one up in the breeze. Hit it to the shortest part of the ballpark. And the Royals go up 3 runs.
Dean Palmer tripled in the 2nd inning. And there it is again. Jeff King got it in the wheelhouse, and boy, with that jet stream blowing out to left, as you mentioned, there was not much doubt.
That one just kind of drifted inside. Looked like it might have been a forkball, and Jeff King, who has been right on just about everything, gives the Royals a huge insurance run.
Meanwhile, back to the ranch. Trachsel ahead of the count on Dean Palmer. No balls and 2 strikes, and Palmer hits it foul down the right field line.
Houston having a lot of trouble on the road, and the Cubs having a lot of trouble trying to catch any ground. And now with Milwaukee taking the lead, it would push them even with the Cubs and 1 up in the loss column if they win that.
1 ball, 2 strikes the count. Steve Trachsel, till that home run, had blanked the Royals for 4 consecutive innings. High towering drive to right field. Sammy Sosa waits for it to come down, makes the catch, 1 away. Stevens and Patterson loosening in the bullpen, and on a night like tonight, it doesn't take long to get loose.
They've both been up before. Patterson's been up consistently. Trachsel would like to complete his first game, but he just as soon not making an 8-inning complete game.
Not very happy faces on the coaching staff and manager Jim Riggleman. Trachsel misses low to Larry Sutton, who's 2 for 2. Sacrifice fly. He has singled twice and scored a run. Two balls, no strikes. Cubs came in tonight having lost 5 straight.
With the lifetime numbers of Conine against Trachsel, if he doesn't get Sutton, you would think that Riggs would go to that pin.
The 2-0 delivery, and it's 2-1. Well, you mentioned Conine. He's on deck. He has a hit in 3 trips tonight, and as we pointed out earlier, has somewhat gaudy lifetime numbers against Trachsel. Two balls, 1 strike. Base hit left field. Valdez up with it. Sutton is aboard for the 3rd time tonight. And Jim Riggleman rocks on the top step of the dugout. Now he steps out, and he's going to make a pitching change. We'll be back to tell you about the new Cubs hurler after these messages. Steve Trachsel worked 7 1/3 innings here tonight. He is responsible for Larry Sutton at first base.
And Dave Stevens, in his 5th appearance, hasn't given up anything yet. So he comes on, does 3 1/3 innings of work, 3 hits, 3 strikeouts, and no walks. And he will face Conine and Lopez as the Cubs battle to keep this at a 3-run deficit. They've got 3 outs to go.
Stevens' contract was purchased from Iowa on June 20th. He was 4-1 with a couple of saves and a 3.08 ERA in 26 relief outings at Iowa. The Royals leading now 6-3 over the Chicago Cubs. Meanwhile, the Brewers have jumped ahead of the White Sox 2-1. Hamlin, his 4th home run of the season. The Brew Crew getting close now in the division to the Cubs.
I have to say that Jeff King, although he's not a great average hitter, is a run producer. 28 home runs, 112 driven in last year. We're not even at the halfway point. He's got 16 and 60 in the power department this year.
Conine tonight 1 for 3 against Trachsel, facing Stevens for the first time. It's fouled off out of play. I mentioned Milwaukee's been creeping up on the 2nd place Cubs. They came into tonight's action just 1 game behind the Cubs in the 2nd place battle, but even with them in the loss column, each team with 36 losses. St. Louis 8.5 out of 1st coming into tonight's game and 3.5 behind the Cubs. There's a strike on the outside corner. No balls, 2 strikes.
St. Louis trailing Minnesota 3-1. That game in the 8th inning in Minnesota. So the Cardinals having some problems on the road.
Dave Stevens has to get a new undershirt, doesn't he? The 0-2 delivery. Ooh, just missed inside, and it's 1-2. Take a look. See, Arnie, see if you can get another shot of that. This must be a lucky shirt or something. You know, one of those deals. See that? Look at how it's ripped around the collar there. Now, you would never.
That's good ventilation on a very warm evening.
As you and your sartorial splendor would never be seen on the mound with a torn undershirt like that in your days, in your heyday.
Well, that has to be a good luck shirt, but it's not a good looking shirt.
No, not hardly. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Runner at first, 1 out. Jammed him and he popped it up into shallow right field. Do they have a play on it? Sosa, long way to go. Makes the catch. Throws to Mark Grace, but back safely is Sutton at first base, 2 men down. Boy, Sammy had to come a long way for that one.
No way Mickey Morandini was going to get to that, and Sammy, with his great speed, just outran it. He comes awfully hard. He looks at Morandini, realizing that Mickey can't get close to it, and Sammy just puts it away. Good play.
So 2 outs as Sammy signals, and it brings up Mendy Lopez, the smooth fielding shortstop for the Royals. Lopez, a run producing triple in the 2nd inning to center field, straight away center field. He is 1 for 3 tonight. They must have a different scouting report on Larry Sutton than you have, Stoney. They've been thrown over there to try to pick him off all night, try to keep him close.
Steve Trachsel very concerned with Sutton, as is Dave Stevens.
Fouled right back behind home plate, not a play.
Well, he has the 1 stolen base, Wayne, but he must have looked awfully fast when he got it.
Without a doubt, they must have clocked him at some obnoxious time.
That's 1 stolen base in 53 games.
Kevin Tampany and Jose Rosado, the pitching matchup tomorrow night, and then Jeremy Gonzalez and Pat Rapp on Sunday. In the windup of this 3-game series, the 0-1 pitch hit toward the gap, right center field. Sosa on the run is there, and he makes the catch to retire Lopez and the Royals. A run on the leadoff homer by Jeff King, a big insurance run for these Kansas City Royals, who take a 6-3 lead into the 9th. Wayne Larrabee, Steve Stone back at Royal Stadium in Kansas City. Top of the 9th inning coming up. But first, let's pause for the Ameritech play that makes a difference.
With everybody in the infield moving, Mendy Lopez hits it right at Mickey Morandini. He gets the double play, keeps the Cubs in the game for the moment. And that is your Ameritech playbook. And on comes Jeff Montgomery. You see a very high ERA of 6.91, 1-3 record, looking for his 16th save. He'll face Ori, Valdez, and Hernandez. And if anybody gets on, they'll go back to the top.
Kevin Ori has walked in 3 trips to the plate. He's 0 for 2 officially. Looks at the pitch a little bit low for ball 1. Montgomery has recorded saves in each of his last 4 outings. There's a strike on the inside corner. It's 1-1. He's allowed 2 hits and no runs in his last 4 outings after getting roughed up for 7 runs on 8 hits in his previous 2 appearances. And that's where the high ERA came in. The 1-1 delivery to Ori in there for strike call.
Well, last year Montgomery lost his closing job. This year he's got it back again. And Tony Muser says he's throwing the ball a little bit better these days. Cubs hoping he falls back into some old habits.
The 1-2 pitch to Ori misses wide of the mark, and it's 2-2. Entering this season, Montgomery was 3rd among active pitchers in career ERA, 2.91, with a minimum of 500 innings pitched in the career. John Franco and Greg Maddux were ahead of him. Slapped foul, and the count remains even at 2-2. Last year, Steve, he didn't record his first save until June 1st. He was injured early in the season, and that's when Hipolito Pichardo, who started tonight's ball game, had taken over in the bullpen for him. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Down low, and the count fills to 3-2. Tony Muser on the right, his former boss Jim Riggleman on the left. 2 managers in tonight's game. Cubs need 3 to tie, 4 to take the lead. Ori slaps at it and dumps it into right field. Offerman going back, and the ball hangs up, and Offerman able to make the catch. On the right field grass, 1 away. So 1 out, nobody on. Pedro Valdez, who is 3 for 3 tonight, steps up. Cub fans, remember, you got a chance to see the Cubs clubhouse, the WGN TV press box, go on the field, in the dugout, much more as the Cubs present exclusive tours of historic Wrigley Field. Enjoy a walk through the history of Wrigley Field. Tickets are just $10 donation to Cubs Care, and tours are available on selected weekends throughout the summer. The next tours are tomorrow and Sunday, June 27th and 28th. And for tickets, call 312-831-CUBS. Valdez looks at strike 1 called. Montgomery right back, and Valdez chasing one out of the zone this time is down to the count. No balls and 2 strikes. The Royals with 2 in the second, 3 more in the third took command, added a big insurance run on a home run in the 8th inning. Pitch down low, and it's 1-2. Jeff King's leadoff homer in the bottom of the 8th inning gave them the insurance. Jose Hernandez waiting patiently on deck. Led by Valdez, the lower third of the order at least has been on base here tonight. 5 times they've reached base, twice by walks. Valdez 3 times with base hits. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Offerman in the hole at second. Juggles it, does not have a play. He fielded it on the outfield grass, and I would imagine they'll give him a base hit.
No, that'll be an error.
Well, good to give him an error. You're right.
He was right there to make the play, and he's charged with the 11th error this year. Just bounces up, hits the heel of the glove. But the Cubs have something going here in the ninth.
Thought they might give the fielder a break on that one, being so deep in the hole. But you know what? As you looked at the replay, he was playing over there and certainly was, as you mentioned, in position to make the play. Just hit the heel of his glove. Now Jose Hernandez. Hernandez 0 for 2 officially. Walked his first trip to the plate. Montgomery misses low and away.
The Cub fans cheering a little. They would love to see this inning kept alive to Sammy Sosa.
Jose has hit much better from the 7th inning on of late. 1 ball, 1 strike. Montgomery looks fairly impressive out there tonight. Pitch seems to have a lot of movement on it.
All it takes now is a bloop and a blast, however. Now that Jose Offerman might have opened the door.
That's a strike called, and it's 1-2.
Sammy waiting to get his chance. 1 for 4 tonight. And he'd love to have a 5th shot at it.
1-2 pitch, swing and a miss. And again, a pitch out of the zone. Hernandez strikes out, 2 men down.
3 straight breaking balls from Montgomery, and this one just biting low and away. And Jose Hernandez, no chance on that one. So Jeff Blauser, the last Cub hope to keep it alive for Mickey Morandini.
Blauser is 1 for 3. Walked and scored in the 1st. He singled to center in the 5th. So the fastball inside. And the Royals fans, the approach of the final out of the game starting to stand here in Kansas City. 1 ball, make that 2 balls, no strikes, as Montgomery misses low. Same 2 teams, same time tomorrow night. 7:05 start. We'll be on the air at 7 o'clock Central Time. The outside corner, strike called. It's 2-1. Kevin Tamperty tomorrow against Jose Rosado, a left-hander. Again, you'll see it 7 o'clock tomorrow right here on WGN. 2-1 delivery, and it's fouled off. It's 2-2.
You would think you would see the good Montgomery breaking ball. Looks like a hard slider. And the fans here on their feet and yelling. These Royals have won 7 of their last 10. But they've struggled at home.
They've only won 12 games at home so far this season. Here's the pitch. Swing and a miss. Strike 3. So the Royals win their 2nd in a row at home. They send the Cubs down to their 6th loss in a row. Montgomery very impressive in his closer role here tonight. Jim Riggleman, the look on his face says it all. It has been a tough week. For the Cubs in the 9th, no runs, no hits, was an error and a man left. The final score in Kansas City, the Royals 6 and the Cubs 3. We'll be back. Bud play of the game, a 2-2 contest in the bottom of the 3rd. Trachsel falls behind Jose Offerman. 2 balls and no strikes, and Offerman turns on a delivery, a 2-run homer, scoring Johnny Damon in front of him. That gave the Royals a lead they would never relinquish, and they go on to defeat the Cubs here tonight by the score of 6-3. A final from Kansas City after these messages. Here in Kansas City as the Royals defeat the Cubs 6-3. Pichardo the winner, Trachsel the loser, Montgomery his 16th save. Our next Cubs telecast on WGN TV will be tomorrow night, where the Cubs and Royals continue their weekend series here at Kauffman Stadium. Our broadcast begins at 7 p.m. It'll be Kevin Tamperty for the Cubs to try to snap a 6-game losing streak against left-hander Jose Rosado. Now for Steve Stone, Arnie Harris, and our entire Cubs crew in Kansas City. Wayne Larrabee saying so long, and stay tuned for WGN News coming up next.